What is going on, everybody, and happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you guys had a great Halloween. As today, guys, for this event, as this is actually going to be the first Halloween video that I actually do on this channel. I did miss my opportunity last year because there were some personal things that was going on. I think I did kind of talk about it. If I didn't, I was actually moving at the time of when Halloween, in fact, all three holidays I missed. I took an 8-month break from YouTube when I first started out, when I was doing Rain's reviews back in, I think, was 2019. So yeah, guys, it's really weird doing a Halloween event, but for this video idea for Halloween, I decided to go with a video suggestion that was actually recommended to me when I was doing the whole thing last week with you guys suggesting me video ideas or video topics. It's the same thing, and doing them for videos. Now, I will mention something about that too real quickly. Those will not be this Sunday, but it's either going to be the next Sunday or when I'll start them, or the next Sunday after that. I'm going to try to get some time to really kind of look into those topics to see if I can do them, because if they're not over 5 minutes, I don't think they're worth it, because of the fact that I'm not getting out the content that you guys want to see. Or if that's the case, I'll maybe combine a couple of them together and kind of get my thoughts that way. We'll just see what ends up happening. But for this video topic, and I'll give the shout outs real quick. Huge shout out to Ogrotha, who is the one that actually gave me this video topic, and actually gave me a lot of video topics. So massive thank you to you, and to the other two that did, Laura and I think I always can't remember the names. I will make sure that I put your name at the beginning of this, and I will put the names of the people that did leave the video topics at the end of the video. That way I can credit all the 3 people that did do it. And I want to say this too, if you still want to do it, that's fine. I'm going to say this though, please limit to 1. I don't care if you have a lot of ideas, but just every video that you want to do it on, just only recommend 1 for 1 video. That is all I ask, because you can give me multiple, I don't really care. It's just that when you cram me with a lot, it overwhelms me, so I don't want that to end up happening again. So that would really help me a lot. Although those, if you do suggest one of those, they will not be done until I get the other ones done, just because they did it during that week, and I did say I was going to do those ones first. So I will still do those video topics, but they will be last. So hope you guys still suggest them. But without further ado, guys, today we're going to be doing a top 10 scariest characters / monsters from the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. This can be between Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters all the way to even up to Yu-Gi-Oh! 7. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if there's any cards, monsters, because it can be anything from the characters to the monsters, it can be even spell cards, really. Any card or character is eligible for this list. But if there's a card or a character that you think deserves to be in the top 10, let me know, and let me know. Guys, I'm going to do this as a different one. Let me know what you guys think is the scariest Yu-Gi-Oh card. I would love to know, guys, what you guys think of that. And maybe it's on the top 10 list. We'll just have to find out. But without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Starting off at number 10 is the Phantom Knights archetype. The Phantom Knights archetype was an archetype used by Yugioh in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 anime, and you guys know probably by now from the last OCG TCG videos that I made, I love this archetype. It is one of my favorite archetypes in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's probably a top 5 archetype for me. I just love the theme and the concept of this deck. I just love the creepy vibe that it gets it from like these kind of like warrior, this like rusted down warrior type monsters with like blue flames coming out. I think were just such cool designs. One of my favorites being the Xyz monster, the Phantom Knights of Cursed Javelin, the Ring 2, and even the Ring 3, the Phantom Knights of Breaksword. I love the designs of them. And if you want to even talk about in the real life game, one of my personal favorites, and maybe it's also because I love how broken it is, the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bargage, which is the Link monster. I really do love it, but that we're just focusing on the anime. I just loved seeing this archetype when it was actually shown, when Yuta would play them, and even when Yuya used it against Selena and Ruri and Selena. I really did love seeing this deck a lot. It was just so cool to see these like monsters, and it was cool of what they represent, and I think the creepiness of them make this spot for me, because obviously we're not talking about just the archetype itself. We're talking about the creepiness of the deck, and I think just the vibe that it gets from like the blue flames coming out of these monsters, I think hit it a lot for me. I actually did not have this on there for a while, but after kind of some thinking of it and kind of like thinking of a bigger lore to these cards, I think these were a perfect representation of like scary type monsters that you would not want to run into while you're walking on the street at night, just saying. But I just love this archetype, and it makes number 10 on my list. It doesn't make it any higher because it's not as creepy. Well, I will mention that really when it comes, maybe it's just for Yu-Gi-Oh itself and for the last horror movies I've watched over the last years, nothing really scares me with horror movies and stuff like that, or nothing really scares me, so it was a little bit hard to make this list. But honestly, I think it was still easy, or less. I kind of put myself in like a 6-year-old's brain when looking at these, and I think if I was at this at a 6-year-old, I would be a little bit terrified. Not too terrified, but just a little bit. Like I said before, I would not like to run into these things during the night. Up next, we actually have a character and a card, and that is Jinzo. Jinzo was a card that was first used by Esperova in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters era, before it was then used by Joey. In fact, one of the big 5 members, I can't remember their names, they're so irrelevant and I don't even want to remember their names, was actually Jinzo, and even Jinzo was a character in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and that's actually the one we're more focused on, was the character Jinzo. I really like the symbolism of Jinzo during Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 1, when the 3 Obelisk Blue students ended up actually trying to summon them with the whole Ouija board and stuff. I thought was really, really cool, and then you had like them getting sacrificed to summon Jinzo and bring him back to the real world before Judai actually had to face him. I can't remember the actual episode, but I remember when he was facing Jinzo and he would actually lose his life energy, or at least that's what the dub said. I can't remember if that was the same thing for the sub. It's been a minute since I've watched the sub, but I remember that duel so well, and I just think the monster just looks so creepy. When I think of Jinzo, I kind of think of like a crazy scientist that you would see in those horror movies like Frankenstein. I would just imagine being that crazy scientist saying, "It's alive! It's alive!" Like, this character would just fit perfectly for that. And even like when it has like the equip spell that Esperova used, where it had the helmets, I think really made that even better, like he was like a test subject. And I really think that would creep me out a lot as a kid, because I didn't watch Duel Monsters as a kid. I watched GX and then watched Duel Monsters afterwards. But still, when I first in that GX episode, I was terrified. I was like, man, this guy like Tekken Spirits, like I would be scared if I was a little bit younger. And honestly, that was kind of frightening, just thinking about some guy just taking your soul away, or taking your life energy, what it was in the dub. So yeah, Jinzo is number 9 on this list, and let's go straight on to number 8. I think this archetype is going to be a little bit surprising on how low it is, but honestly, maybe it's just because dolls don't really creep me out that much, but I don't know, I still feel like this archetype is still creepy. And coming at number 8 is the Gimmick Puppet archetype. This was an archetype that was used by Quattro or 4 in the original version, and these dolls are creepy, especially in the sub version, because the dub definitely did nerf the monsters, but when you look at something like Gimmick Puppet Drary Doll, that is the epitome of creepiness, just the creepiness in the monsters. And even like the number monsters, like I think it was like number 18, Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder, scared the heck out of me, dude. Like, I was really scared, like, just seeing the monsters getting grabbed and actually going through the grinder, and you would watch them get shredded to pieces. That would terrify you. I mean, it terrified Brock and Caswell when they faced Quattro in that triangle-looking duel. And even, like, the other ones, like number 40, Gimmick Puppet of Strings, and even Leo, to a degree, more is Chaos Xyz form, Gimmick Puppet Disaster Leo, I thought looked so creepy, but more so, the monsters itself, the doll monsters, were super creepy. Like I said with the Drary doll, that was probably the most creepiest one out of them all. Even thought the Gimmick Puppet Egg, I think it was like Egg Yolk or something like that was his name. I thought that was actually pretty comfy. I thought it was like a, kind of like a darkened kind of Humpty Dumpty in a way. That's what it kind of reminded me of. And I just really do like this archetype a lot for its creepiness. And The thing, again, it's like I said before, the reason why it's not higher is because dolls don't really scare me. I mean, when you grow up with a little sister, dolls aren't gonna really scare you. So, yeah, maybe that's why this is not high on this list. But you gotta give the credit for the details on these cars to make them look so creepy. And I think this was just the perfect video to talk about the Gimmick Puppets. And even though they're not as high, they deservedly make number 8 on this list. Here's another shocker. Coming at number 7 is Bones, more so Bones in his deck from the original Duel Monsters. I don't know what it was with this kid, but this kid really was a creepy looking character. I mean, this guy looked like he'd literally risen from the dead. I mean, I think everyone thought when they were a kid that this kid was a little bit creepy, but what also made this character so... There was actually multiple things that made this character creepy. His death scene and his deck. We'll talk about the deck first. His deck was creepy as all heck. I mean, I remember the clown monster. I think there was like a dragon, and there was one other monster before Pumpkin that he would summon with Call of the Haunted. You remember season 1 when he would play the spell card Call of the Haunted? Remember when it used to be a spell card? I sure do remember that. And where he was saying like all zombie monsters were like immune from when he played Call of the Haunted. Sorry if I'm a little bit staticky. Even when doing the research for this, I'm still a little bit hazy on Duelist Kingdom. I only watched it twice out of all the times I watched Yu-Gi-Oh, which is very surprising. I'm really hazy on it. But I remember when he would actually summon those monsters, and they would just have the oozes coming out of them. It was just so creepy. And when he said they were undead through the Call of the Haunted's effect, even though season 1 was weird. I forgot all about the rule rankings in season 1, man, but just seeing those monsters was just so disturbing. And even his death scene, do you guys remember when Bakura actually killed Bones? Or at least that's what it was more explicit in the manga, as in the manga Bakura actually kills Bones from his last attack, and I think it ended up like breaking his neck or something. I can't remember what it was, but you just see like the lifeless eyes coming out of him, which really creeped not only Bones out from his dead body, but even it creeped out Bakura, and just seeing how sick he was, how intense he was. But even more so what happens even in the original version, when you would have like the arms from the ground literally pull the kids to, assumingly, well, Dove Shadow Realm in the original to hell, basically, and that was just insane when he dragged the 3 of them down to hell, and I loved that scene. It was one of my favorite Yami Bakura moments. But aside from that, I really did like the creepiness of this character, and I think it would be a disgrace to put this character on this list. Just from the deck to even his death scene, just make this character, even though he wasn't my favorite, still makes a comfortable spot at number 7 on this list. Another Duel Monsters character makes number 6. This one is more of a one-shot character, but the creepiness and the story of this character makes it up on high as high it is on this list, and that is Strings. Strings was a character that really did creep me out the first time I watched him, just being like this soulless mind, basically, and that was all. What made this character so creepy had to be his backstory. I remember because I was skimming through the internet because I was trying to search for the characters, and Strings wasn't originally on there. But fun fact, I've never read any of the mangas. I didn't even read the original Duel Monsters manga, and even though I said more of the anime, since the manga was before the anime in this case, I thought it was alright to use that. It was fair, alright? I mean, they're basically the same story. In the manga, which was actually cut from the actual anime, because basically censoring it, Strings killed his family. And no, you did not hear me wrong. He killed his family. And he felt so guilty that it basically allowed Yami Merrick to basically be able... Well, actually, it was regular Merrick. Excuse me. It allowed Merrick to take control, because remember, Merrick was on his thrive to killing the Pharaoh or trying to steal the Millennium Puzzle in the dub. But just the creepiness of this character, and honestly, I'm going to say this, don't really like mimes that much, and this character was a creepy mime, I will say that, to not say anything. I don't think we actually ever hear him speak once, which made his character even more creepier. Sadly, his deck couldn't really boost him that much, but I thought Strings just past makes it so high just because of the fact that of how insane this character is to actually kill his family, his mom and dad. When I first saw that, I never knew that. I never even looked that up before. I knew some pretty dark stuff happened in the manga. I remember how Merrick's dad died in the manga when he was basically skinned alive in the back. Like, ugh. I knew that stuff, but I actually did not know anything about Strings past, so yeah, just that alone makes it at number 6. Again, even I will say though, the character did look pretty creepy. I will say though, maybe it's because I don't really care for mimes. I don't really like them that much, but his deck didn't help him much, and his design, even though it was scary, wasn't scary enough for the higher parts on this list. But that backstory though made it comfortably at number 6 on this list. Now we are at the top 5 portion of this list, and at the number 5 spot, and actually is the last archetype in this video, as my favorite scariest archetype from all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the Umbral horror deck, or archetype, from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. It was an archetype that was used by Vector, or Ray, whatever you wanted to call him, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal anime, and I think this one just is the epitome of scariness. Just these, like, black soulless, like, ghouls almost in a way. I remember his Umbral horror ghost just standing there all creepy, like it was dead, and even had the shadow monsters with Umbral horror Will-O-Wisp. And even the ghoul monster looked creepy as all heck. I really did like this archetype, and I just loved the creepy vibes to it. And even like the masquerade monster, even though I don't think it was as creepy as the actual Umbral horror monsters, it's Chaos Evolved form, number C104. I believe his number was 104. Yeah, it was 104. Umbral horror masquerade did bring back that creepiness that the Umbral horror archetype had, and even the character himself, and you know what, I'll include him as well, just Vector himself was just insane. You do not want to meet Vector in the street as well, especially when you kind of learn about his past, where he slaughtered basically his entire country, and that was insane. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, what? What did he do? I was so surprised when that happened, and even like manipulating Yuma, I mean, Vector was what you described as a troll, and I loved Vector for that. He is one of my favorite antagonists in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Might even be my favorite, to be completely honest, just for the troll factor. But just the creepiness that he brought and the creepiness that he brought to the deck was just so enjoyable to watch with him, and comfortably sits on this list at number 5. You know, we were mentioning strings before, but who was the one that was pulling his strings? Get where I went with that? Anyway, hitting the spot at number 4 is Yami Merrick. This character, man, was so great to watch. He is probably one of the greatest villains that we ever seen. He is definitely on the top antagonist list if I ever did it. But what this man did, and even just his goals, just make it so high on this list. We remember when I was mentioning before when he went and killed his father. Well, in the anime, he does end up stabbing him, and you know what I mentioned earlier in the manga, where he actually skinned his father alive, which is insane. And this was Yami Merrick. And when Merrick came to and saw his father dead on the floor, he basically blamed the pharaoh for this after Shadi came and basically went on the grudge to go and kill the pharaoh. That was his whole motive, or in the dub, he just wanted to steal his Millennium Puzzle, because that's what every single villain wanted to do. Yami Bakura, Yami Merrick, Pegasus, like all three of them just wanted the puzzle in the dub. I mean, seriously. But even what he did to the people was so insane. In fact, we see in season 4, he killed Arcana, he killed Strings. I think Strings and Umbris and Loomis were never known, but Bandit Keys was someone he took a hold of. Arcana, like I mentioned, and there was another character that he took. I can't remember all the rare heart. What was it? Seeker. Seeker was his name. He ended up killing them after they ended up failing the job, and even tried to kill Joey by tying them to an anchor, and whoever would lose the duel would actually get dragged to the bottom of the ocean. I mean, and this was actually Merrick. I forgot that was Merrick. I remember when he was Yami Merrick, and he almost stabbed Joey with the Millennium Rod because it came into a machete, and he even almost killed Odeon, or I think his name was Rashid in the sub. I remember when he was just standing over him, and it was the calm that basically saved his life. I mean, this guy is what you call insane, and even like the shadow games he played when he had Mai trapped in the hourglass of sand and would forget her memories, or if you read the manga, she was gonna get eaten by flesh-eating insects, which, ugh, that is creepy. And then you even had when he basically blasted Joey away and almost lost. I remember when in the sub he threw up in his mouth after that whole fight with Joey because it actually physically damaged him, and that was just a great moment as well. I mean, I could talk all about this guy, to be completely honest. Let's just finish it off. When he even got each of the counterparts together and basically was sacrificing these characters to basically win against the Pharaoh, to actually send both of them away, and it took Merrick to actually surrender to finish the duel. We all know that. I don't need to explain that, but just all the stuff that this character did just easily made it a number 4 spot on this list. I didn't put him any higher because I just think what the other ones represented to me personally is what made these higher, but Merrick was such a great antagonist. He would definitely be higher on my list if I did this for antagonists. But we're not looking at antagonists, we wanted to look at the creepiness. And even just Merrick, Yami Merrick himself, just looked pretty creepy. That was definitely a character you did not want to meet, especially when you saw the machete come out of his Millennium Rod. Yeah, you did not want to run into him. Well, let's finish off the Yamis. Coming at the number 3 spot on this list is Zork / Yami Bakura. Now, we're going to talk about Zork first, and then we'll talk about Yami Bakura. Zork was the final boss monster in Season 5 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, and this character was insane. You had the whole dragon monster coming out of him, and he just looked... Not only did he look awesome, but he looked terrifying as heck. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Exodia. Like, it almost went to the point where it was hopeless until you had... I can't remember the name of it. It was the fusion of the 3 gods. It was like the creator monster. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. I forgot. That has been so long since I've seen that monster, so sorry that I'm a bit rusty on that character. I couldn't even remember the name to even look it up. But I just remember seeing this character for the first time, and even looking at some of the panels from the manga, and this character just looked insane. This character, if you were a kid, could give you nightmares just from how big it is. I would feel bad for the Egyptian kids back in the days when they saw Zork. They would just have nightmares after that whole fight. I mean, I feel so bad for them. And even Yami Bakura brought that as well, as he wanted to also gather the Millennium items to basically resurrect himself, because remember, Yami Bakura was actually Zork, and this character was just insane. I remember, and even though this isn't scary, I just remember the scene when he grossly ate that steak on the blimp. Honestly, I thought that was funny, but that just showed how intense that character was. But what made him so creepy too was his deck. His deck was so incredible, and a little bit spoilers, there's going to be a monster that's actually going to be just above him, and you guys probably know what it is by now, but just his deck and the way he played was just so creepy, man. It was so great to watch, and it was so creepy of his deck, and I really did love Yami Bakura. I mean, geez, Duel Monster character villains were so great. They brought the level of creepiness, well, except for one. I didn't really care for that guy. Siegfried is the guy I'm talking about. No one really cares about him. I guess you even know it too, but that's not the point. And even, I will say even too, like the creepiness of that character as well, just made it so memorable for this character as well. And this is definitely a guy you do not want to meet on the streets either. I don't know why I keep making that assumption, but obviously you don't want to see any of these in there, especially if you see a giant foot monster that can actually go toe-to-toe with Exodia. So yeah, guys, I would stay home if I were you. And with that, Zork / Yami Bakura hits number 3 on this list. Well, I mentioned this monster before, but taking up the runner spot as my creepiest card from all Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Dark Necrophobia. I love the design of this monster. It was so creepy the first time I saw it, especially in the sub, because the dub, you know the dub, they like to censor their stuff. But what this character represent was so scary. I remember the new card artwork. I can't remember the card's name off the top of my head, or I didn't even find it out when I was looking online. But I remember just seeing the dark Necrophobia over the Ouija board and just thinking like that's the soul that just moves the Ouija board around. Was so creepy. But even the design of this monster, if you guys remember in the original artwork in a clean version, you would see, even in the anime in the sub, you just had dark Necrophobia holding the head baby. That really creeped me out, especially like the ooze that was like inside of the cracked skull of its head. It was just so creepy. I will say though, that was the most creepiest card Yami Bakura ever had, and I absolutely loved it. It brought that creepiness that I was really going for when doing this. I don't think though it was the creepiest, but I think the monster itself was just so creepy in the anime. Even when it got destroyed, just seeing it destroyed, and then you see the baby even have its own death animation, was just so disturbing, but I absolutely loved it. I mean, this card is just great. This was back to the flat. I don't remember the saying, but sorry I'm so muffled. I just love this card so much. I just remembering the first time I watched it, just seeing that scene, I was so creeped out. I just love that scene. And this card makes number 2 spot on this list. I don't think it was enough for number 1, but it was so close, let me tell you, until I kind of remember this card, or not this card, but this character. So, with that said, it makes number 2 on this list. Now, before we actually get into number 1, I actually do have 3 honorable mentions to go over. These characters were so close to making it. However, I thought they just didn't bring enough to make it on this list. So let's go over them. Coming up first, we have Arcana. I just thought this character was creepy in general. I remember the whole duel with Yugioh with the Dark Magicians back and forth with each other, and the whole cutting their legs off if they lose the duel. That was just such an enjoyable moment to watch. And even what happens after, when you would go and see him basically hug the doll when he thought it was his wife, was just so creepy. And even just the design of this character looked so creepy, and this character would actually be number 11 on my list. He was so close, but after kind of thinking about the whole Phantom Knights archetype, that's what actually ended up beating. It was originally the first thing on my list at number 10, but sadly it did not make it onto that list. Might be a surprising honorable mention, but Don Thousand, I actually think this character was pretty creepy for what he ended up doing. He was the reason why all of the Barian Emperors had so messed up backstories. I remember when I first watched it, when Alita was actually getting executed because Don Thousand basically made it to where his best friend would actually accuse him and sentence him to execution, which is insane. He was the reason that Vector's mom and dad ended up getting killed. I remember Shark losing his entire colony as well, and that was due to Don Thousand's influence on Vector to end up making a whole chain to Shark where his whole country basically got killed. All of his people ended up dying, and he felt so bad even watching his sister die, Marag, excuse me. Well, I think Marin is in the dub, but I'm used to calling her Marag, and then even seeing that little girl that looked like her was just so insane. This guy was so messed up, and even kind of being like this godly figure just made him so creepy, and he would be number 12, but I just don't think he just brought enough. I wish we kind of saw a little bit more creepiness, I guess, but he was such a great character. I loved Don Thousand. And the last one is actually Alice, the doll from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 2. I don't know why, but I did see some kind of creepiness to this character. Again, dolls don't really affect me, but I think the creepiness of this character, just the actual walking, talking doll, just made it creepy. The scenery when Judai dueled the doll, or Alice, I should just call it Alice, it was so creepy. And even her deck with like the mutated kind of like dolls with all the weird... Oh, it was Doll Chimera. I remember the card. It was Doll Chimera was the monster that Judai faced. It was just so creepy seeing that. Even like the head going and attacking Thunder Giant was so cool. And even though the last monster, Alice the Wandering Doll, was pretty creepy as well. And I honestly didn't mind her as a character, to be completely honest, but I don't think she brought enough for me. Maybe we saw a little bit more, as she was only a one-shot character in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. So wasn't enough, but these were my 3 honorable mentions for this list. So it's not Yami Bakura, it's not Yami Merrick, it's not Dark Necrophobia. So what would the number 1 be? Well, the number 1 scariest character slash monster from all of Yu-Gi-Oh, in my opinion, was Darkness or Night Shroud from the dub. I don't know what it was with this character, but this character is absolutely terrifying to the point where I like the character, but I wish he did a little bit more. I'm going to be completely honest. This character is basically the representation of the devil, and I really did like that about this character. This character brought enough creepiness, especially with his motives to drown everyone in darkness, was just so great to watch. I wish we did see it a lot more when he was sending the Truman clones out to actually turn everyone into darkness. I remember when watching the duel at Axel, and he would just cry about his mom and father after the whole scenario of what happened, and even put in Alexis, Chaz, I don't know if I think Sho got it, Jesse even, when he dueled against Fujiwara, was just so insane. And this character is a character that you do not want to meet at all. I don't know how Judai was not terrified of this. Maybe it's just because of his friends being all taken away and he had really no choice. And even when he lost all his life points, and all you just see was the skull, is the perfect representation of a scary character. I just absolutely loved his design. I really did wish, even like when he was just the mask, I thought they had some type of level of creepiness to them, and I absolutely loved it. Darkness was just great in terms of that creepiness, and just being like that devilish character really just blew it up to the number 1 spot for me. This one was kind of an immediate number 1 for me, just because of what this character represented. I mean, that's kind of how Halloween, or at least in my area, kind of was portrayed. So this character easily is my top pick for the scariest characters slash monsters in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on this list was. Do you want me to kind of do this for Thanksgiving and Christmas too? I would really love to do something like that. If you guys have a kind of like Thanksgiving type of thing or a Christmas thing, I already have something for next year. I already kind of had that planned, but if you have something for Christmas and Thanksgiving, please let me know an idea that I can do for this. I would really, really appreciate it. I have nothing for Thanksgiving, really. Maybe I could just do like the best friends, like kind of rank the best friends between the series. I have really no idea what I'm going to do for that. Don't even know what I'm going to do for Christmas. I might just do that as an update. I have really no idea, but guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave your guys' ranks down below, and make sure to also put down what you think is the creepiest card artwork from all the cards. It can even be a card that was never shown in the anime. I would really like to know what you guys think is the creepiest card. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time guys, take care and have yourselves a great spooky rest of your day. Bye guys.